I stood there, frozen in the doorway of our bedroom. She was toweling off like it was just another ordinary day. Her hair was still wet, stuck to her shoulders, and the steam from her shower carried the scent of her perfume. And her voice, God help me, her voice was soaked in this casual kind of cruelty that made my skin crawl. "Now that I've gotten some real emotion from Brandon," she said, not even looking at me, "you're welcome to touch me." Touch her? After everything I just found out? After reading the message that scorched itself into my memory like a brand? I couldn't even speak at first. I just stared at her like I was looking at something wild and dangerous. Because the woman standing in front of me wasn't Sierra anymore. Not really. She was something else now. Something wearing her skin. Her name's Sierra, by the way. She used to be the woman I pictured sitting beside me when we were old and gray. Now she was just betrayal wrapped in beauty. I took a slow breath, my voice dragging up from someplace deep and dark. "No need," I said, steady but low. "I already know everything. And soon, so will Brandon's wife." That got her attention. She finally turned around, and just like that, her smirk vanished. I didn't stop there. "Oh, and you might want to check your bank account," I said. "You'll find it sitting at zero." The towel slipped from her hand as her face twisted in confusion and panic. "Jack, what the F asterisk 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 are you talking about?" That was it. That moment right there? That's when the game changed. When all the lies stopped pretending. Just 2 days earlier, I was nothing more than a husband busting his ass, working overtime, trying to give a good life to a woman who, turns out, had already left me in every way that mattered. I'm in real estate. Long hours, late-night calls, always under pressure to hit the numbers. But none of that ever bothered me. I loved Sierra. I trusted her. I thought we were building something real together. The first red flag? That showed up last week. She started doing full makeup just to run to the grocery store. I asked her about it. She laughed it off like I was being ridiculous. "Come on, Jack," she said. "I'm allowed to look decent in public, aren't I?" And yeah, of course she was. But the way she said it? It felt like a slap I was supposed to pretend didn't hurt. Then came the late-night walks. She'd leave in yoga pants and come home smelling like a department store cologne aisle, men's cologne. Said she needed time to clear her head. The first couple times, I tried to believe her. But by the 5th or 6th, I couldn't ignore it anymore. That's when I started digging. Didn't take long to find the texts. She didn't even try to hide it. No code name. Just Brandon. Stuff like, "You're my escape from reality. Jack would never understand what we have. You make me feel alive again." I stared at that screen, shaking all over. I wasn't crying. Not yet. My body was just short-circuiting. Like it couldn't figure out how to process this kind of betrayal. Brandon Butler. That's who it was. Her friend from the gym. Married. 2 kids. I'd shaken his damn hand at a barbecue, laughed with the guy over beers, while he was slicing into my life with a smile. I didn't confront her right away. No, I wanted proof. Cold, hard proof. The kind you can't talk your way out of. So I called a guy I knew, Nolan. He was a former client, now a private investigator. Less than 2 days later, he had photos. Sierra and Brandon, tangled up in each other outside a cheap motel just off the highway. Her legs around his waist, her face lit up like she hadn't looked in years. That night, I didn't sleep. Just sat there, staring at the ceiling, planning what I'd say. But I never got the chance to start. Because she beat me to it, with that sick little line about getting emotions from Brandon. She came home from screwing him, washed off his sweat, and tried to offer me what was left like I should be grateful. That's when I snapped. That's when I told her about the money. She didn't know I'd been quietly shifting our funds for weeks. I'd been planning a joint investment that never happened. Everything, every account, was in my name. By the time she figured it out, it was too late. Her cards were declined. Her savings were gone. I walked out before she could finish screaming, and I drove straight to Brandon's house. I had the photos printed out. I had screenshots of the messages, timestamps, everything. I wanted his wife, Megan, to see the truth with her own eyes. But what I didn't expect was who opened the door. It wasn't Megan. It was Brandon's teenage daughter, standing there with a phone in one hand and a baseball bat in the other. "You're Jack?" she asked. I nodded. She stepped aside and said, "Mom's already crying in the kitchen. We saw the messages. Come in." I didn't realize it then, but everything was about to blow up. Mia, that was her name, couldn't have been older than 16. But the way she looked at me? Like she'd already seen too much. Like she was done taking anyone's crap. She gripped that bat like she knew how to use it. I walked in slowly, photos tied in my fist, heart pounding. The house was dead quiet, except for a soft sound drifting from the kitchen, someone crying. "Your mom? She knows?" I asked. Mia nodded. She saw a message pop up on his phone. He left it on the table. She started digging. Found everything. So did I. Her voice broke on that last sentence, and it hit me. This mess had splintered deeper than just the marriage. It had reached their daughter. And as much as I wanted to be furious, to let all that disgust boil over, I couldn't. I just stood there, watching her shake, clutching that bat like it was keeping her upright. I moved slowly into the kitchen. There she was, Megan, Brandon's wife, curled up on the tile floor like she'd been gutted. Her eyes were red and raw, hands trembling, tissue scattered all around her like ashes from a fire that had already burned everything down. When she looked up and saw me, something in her eyes shifted. Recognition. Pain. "Jack," she whispered. I nodded gently and crouched down. Carefully, I placed the printed photos between us, shots from the motel, screenshots of their messages, everything time-stamped and undeniable. "I didn't realize you already knew," I said quietly. "But I figured you deserved the whole truth." She didn't reach for the pictures. Didn't even glance at them. I think she'd already seen more than enough. "They used to meet in my car," she murmured. "He'd tell me he was going for runs. Early mornings. But he was picking her up, using my car." That one hit me like a punch to the gut. We sat there, just the two of us, complete strangers, bound by the same open wound. "I feel like my whole life's been a lie," she said, gripping the counter and pulling herself to her feet. "I don't even know who I am without him." I looked her square in the eye. "You're someone who made it through," I told her. "That's who you are." And that's when we heard the door slam. Megan jumped, startled. Mia came rushing down the hallway, her voice tight with panic. "He's home." Brandon strolled in like it was just another day. Keys in one hand, gym bag in the other. Then he saw me sitting at his kitchen table and froze like someone had just dumped ice water down his back. "Jack," he said, like we'd run into each other at a gas station or something. I stood up slowly. "Hey, Brandon, you got a minute?" His whole face changed, like he knew he'd been caught holding a lit match in a room soaked with gasoline. Megan crossed her arms, her voice sharp and cold. "You want to explain why your phone is full of pictures of you and Sierra?" Brandon fumbled. "Megan, it's not what it looks like." I cut him off. "No, Brandon. It's exactly what it looks like. Motel bills. Messages. And just so you know, you should have cleared your dash cam." Nolan got it all. Brandon went pale. "You hired someone?" Megan slammed the photos against his chest. "I gave you everything, Brandon. And this is what you do? For her? That manipulative narcissist?" "She told me she wasn't happy," Brandon jumped in. "Said you were distant. Said Jack didn't care about her." Mia snapped. "Stop lying." Her voice cracked through the room like a gunshot. The bat slipped from her hands and hit the floor with a heavy thud. Then silence. Brandon looked around, taking in his daughter's devastated face, Megan's fury, and the weight of what he'd done finally seemed to hit him. "She said she was going to leave him," he muttered. "She told me she wanted to be with me." I thought. He didn't finish. He couldn't. I couldn't help it. I let out a dry, bitter laugh. "You thought she'd leave me?" I said. "Buddy, she didn't even rinse the smell of you off before crawling back into my bed." His jaw clenched. "You didn't." "No," I snapped. "I have self-respect." I turned to Megan. "I'll go now. I just wanted you to know." She nodded. "Thank you." As I stepped outside, I saw Mia pick the bat back up, not in anger, but in defense. In survival. And that's when it really sank in. Sierra hadn't just torn apart our marriage. She'd lit a fuse that was already starting to blow through other lives. And there wasn't a damn thing I could do to stop it. I didn't go back home that night. I couldn't. The thought of stepping foot in that house, lying in that bed where she probably played out every fantasy of him while pretending with me, made my stomach turn. So I drove. No destination. Just me and the road, trying to outrun the fire still burning in my chest. Sierra, moaning into her phone in the middle of the night. Sierra, grinning a little too big whenever Brandon's name came up. Sierra, coming home, rinsed clean, and offering me her leftovers like I should be grateful, now that I got emotions from Brandon. That line played on repeat in my head like some twisted commercial jingle. I gripped the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. My phone buzzed for what had to be the 50th time. Her name lit up again. I ignored it. Eventually, I pulled into a deserted lot by the lake. No music, no noise, just silence and the occasional scream inside my chest. It wasn't even anger anymore. It had frozen into something colder. Something final. That's when I made the call. Nolan? Yeah. I want the apartment cleaned out. Tomorrow. You serious? He asked. Dead serious. What Sierra didn't know was the lease on our downtown condo, the upscale one she liked to show off, was in my name only. Legally, she was just a guest. And her time was up. Next morning, I showed up like a man on a mission. Not angry. Not sad. Just focused. Nolan and his team were already packing up everything that belonged to me. The laptops, my watches, documents, even the damn espresso machine and Dyson vacuum I bought. Sierra's stuff? I didn't touch a thing. I wasn't about to be called petty. Let her keep her designer bags and all those pretty lies. At exactly 10:16 a.m., she walked in, heels clicking, sunglasses on, Starbucks in hand. Like it was just another fabulous morning. Then she saw me. Her smirk wavered. Oh, you're home, she said. Nope, I replied, cool as ice. Just passing through. She glanced at the boxes, confused. What the hell is this? She snapped. This? I said, calm as could be. This is me walking away. Sierra squinted at me, like she was trying to figure out if I was bluffing. Is this supposed to scare me? She asked. No, I said. It's not about scaring you. It's about setting myself free. She whipped her coffee into the sink so hard it cracked the ceramic. Then she turned on me with that familiar bite in her voice. You're being dramatic. Am I? I said. Says the woman who used my money to buy lingerie for a guy who still tucks in his kids at night. Her cheeks flushed red. That's none of your business, she hissed. It became my business the minute you turned our marriage into a punchline, I shot back. She folded her arms, shifting gears like she always did when she wanted to manipulate the moment. Her tone softened to that syrupy sweet voice she used whenever she was angling for something. I mean, do you really want to throw all this away over one mistake? One mistake, I repeated, blinking in disbelief. She nodded and took a slow step toward me, laying her hand gently on my chest like old times. I didn't move. I let her do it. We can fix this, she whispered. Let's go to therapy. Or, I said, you could just check your bank account. Her smile vanished like a switch had been flipped. What? I leaned in close, dropped my voice to a whisper, cold and final, like a prayer meant to end things. You lied. You cheated. You made a joke out of me in the place I built for us. So no, Sierra, there's no therapy. There's no fixing this. There's only fallout now. She shoved me in the chest, rage bubbling up. You arrogant piece of SH. I caught her wrist, not rough, just firm enough to make her stop and meet my eyes. Save it, I said. Megan knows everything. Your little fantasy world is falling apart. Her mouth opened, then shut again. She had nothing. For once, she had no script ready. I picked up my boxes, my dignity, and walked out. Later that day, I got a text from her. Sierra, you think you're winning, but you're nothing without me. You'll be begging to come back in a month. I didn't respond. Just took a screenshot. One day, when I'm whole again, I'll look back at that message and laugh, because that wasn't love. That was war. And I was done raising the white flag. By the time I left that apartment, she had probably ripped it apart, screaming at her reflection, hurling shoes in the closet, maybe crying to Brandon on the phone, playing the victim. That was Sierra. She could burn your house down and then wonder why the fire made her uncomfortable. I drove over to Peter's place. Old buddy. We hadn't talked in months, but he opened the door without hesitation. Didn't ask a single question. Eventually, over a few beers and a long stretch of silence, I told him the whole thing. When I was done, he just shook his head and said, Man, she's toxic. A black hole with lipstick. Couldn't argue with that. For a second, I thought maybe that was the end of it. That after blowing it all up, exposing everything to Megan, draining the accounts, walking out, Sierra would finally cool off. Nope. Next morning, 8:13 sharp, my phone rang. It was the bank. She tried to get into the emergency fund, the one I'd already emptied out the day before. I took the call on speaker. Yes, I told the rep. That account's closed. She doesn't have access anymore. Hung up. Waited. 10 minutes later, my phone lit up like Times Square. Sierra, 12 messages. What's going on? Where's the money? I needed that to pay rent. You're being abusive. Is this what makes you feel like a man? I'll call the police. Answer me. Don't ignore me, Jack. I need to pay bills. This is financial control. You're sick. I hate you. You'll regret this. I read those texts like I was scrolling through a bad comedy skit. Rent? I'd been covering that for months. Bills? I was still paying off a credit card she used for her freelance career, which mainly involved selfies and pretending to work. What really got me was how fast she could flip, rage, guilt-tripping, victimhood, cycling through every trick in her book like she was spinning a slot machine, hoping one would hit. But it didn't work anymore, because now I saw her for who she really was. Around noon, I got a call I never expected. "Megan." "Hey," she said, voice soft. "I know it's probably weird to hear from me, but I just wanted to say thank you." I leaned back against the wall. "You don't have to. I hated being the one to drop it all on you." "Still," she said, "I think I would have kept pretending, living in the lie. You shattered it, and I needed that." We talked for a bit. Nothing heavy, just two people who got burned by the same fire. Before she hung up, she hesitated for a second and said, "If you ever want to grab coffee, not a date, just two people who know what betrayal tastes like, I'd be okay with that." It was the first genuine moment I'd felt in days. That evening, I pulled into the gym parking lot, not to lift weights, not to sweat anything out, just to watch. And there she was, Sierra, sitting in Brandon's car, screaming into the dashboard like it had betrayed her too. I couldn't hear what she was yelling, but I didn't need to. I recognized the fight, the wild gestures, the tears, the panic. Brandon's expression said it all, pure regret. I don't know if she told him I'd emptied the accounts. Maybe he finally saw her for what she was, a wrecking ball that never leaves without dragging someone down with her. Either way, he'd had enough. He shoved the door open and climbed out. Didn't say a word. Didn't even look back. Just walked away. Sierra chased after him for a few steps, then gave up, dropped to the pavement, covered her face, and crumbled. I stayed in my car. No fist pumping. No smug grin. Just silence. For the first time in months, I felt peace. When I got back to my new place, my own space, clean, quiet, mine, I sat down, poured myself a drink, and checked my phone one last time. One last message from Sierra. "Sierra, I hope you're happy. You've ruined everything." I didn't answer. Instead, I turned off my phone, leaned back, and let out a quiet breath. "No, Sierra," I whispered. "You did that all by yourself." The next few days felt like that strange stillness after a hurricane. Everything was technically still standing, but it had all shifted. The silence wasn't empty, it was unfamiliar. But somehow, it felt good. Like peace that hadn't figured out how to settle yet. For the first 24 hours, there was nothing from Sierra. No texts. No voicemails. Not even a fake tear-filled, "You'll regret this" call. At first, I didn't trust it. Felt like the calm before a bomb. And I was right. Tuesday morning, right after I finished unpacking the last box in my new place, a simple condo far from the toxic walls of my old life, I was hanging up a photo of me and my dad from a fishing trip when someone started pounding on the front door like it owed them money. I looked through the peephole. Brandon. He looked like hell. Eyes bloodshot. Jaw twitching. Hair all over the place like he hadn't slept in days. I cracked the door open slowly, ready for whatever this was. He barged in without waiting. "She's insane," he shouted, pacing my living room like a caged animal. I closed the door behind him and crossed my arms. "You don't say." "She told my wife we were getting married," he exploded. "She even showed her a ring, man." I blinked. "A ring?" He nodded, eyes wide with panic. "Told Megan I gave it to her." Megan flipped. "Threw all my clothes in the front yard. Called her dad. I'm staying at a damn motel." For a split second, I almost felt sorry for the guy. Almost. "I didn't give her a ring, Jack. I swear on my kids," he said. "She bought it herself." Spun some twisted story about me proposing and how we were gonna run away together. I sat down, watching him unravel like a man who just realized he'd stepped into quicksand. "You really didn't know what she was capable of?" I asked. He stopped pacing and looked at me, really looked at me for the first time. "No," he said quietly. "I thought she was just exciting. You know? Something different." "You mean reckless? Unstable? Addicted to chaos," I corrected. He didn't argue. After a long pause, he muttered, "I lost everything. My wife. My kids. My job. HR found out about the affair. I'm on indefinite leave." I leaned forward, elbows on my knees. "And for what?" "A few hotel rooms and a woman who treats loyalty like garbage." Brandon shook his head, his whole face falling apart. "She said she loved me. I couldn't help it." I laughed. Hard. "She loved you," I said. "Brandon, she came home from you still sweating guilt and told me I could touch her now because she got her emotions from you." That's not love, man. That's pure manipulation dressed in silk. He slumped down on the couch and buried his face in his hands. She won't stop texting me, he groaned. She's threatening to tell my boss even more lies. Saying if I don't take her back, she'll do something crazy. She won't, I said. She just needs a crowd. Don't give her one. But deep down, I knew Sierra. And when she felt backed into a corner, she didn't just roll over. She'd claw. She'd scream. She'd light the whole damn room on fire just to make sure someone saw the smoke. And sure enough, that night, I got a message from an unknown number. Unknown. You're ruining lives. You'll regret this. No name. No picture. But I didn't need either. I knew that poison. Sierra. She'd scorched the earth and was now furious that the ashes wouldn't rebuild themselves. Brandon left sometime after midnight. Quieter this time. Defeated. Just a shell of the grinning guy who once flirted with my wife under my nose. Right before he stepped out the door, he turned back to me. What now? He asked. I stared at the door after it shut behind him. Now? Now. I rebuild. Not with lies. Not with masks. With truth. And if Sierra wanted to light more fires, I was fine with it. I'd already walked barefoot through hell, and what she didn't get was, hell can't burn you again when you're already made of ash. By Thursday, things got quiet again. But not the peaceful kind. No, it was that uneasy, skin-prickling silence I knew all too well from her. The kind that meant she was planning something. Sierra never left anything alone, not without trying to twist the knife on her way out. And right on schedule, the explosion hit the next day. It started with a knock. Only this time, it wasn't Brandon at the door, it was a courier. Young guy. Looked nervous. Handed me a thick envelope, asked for my signature, and then jogged off like he'd just delivered a live grenade. My gut tightened as I opened it. Inside was a letter from Sierra's lawyer. She was filing for spousal support. I read it once. Then again. Then a third time, just to make sure I wasn't hallucinating. Spousal support. From the same woman who'd cheated on me, drained our joint account, and tried to seduce me after stumbling home from another man's motel bed. I couldn't help it. I laughed. Loud, rough, the kind of laugh that comes out when your brain short-circuits trying to reason with crazy. That helpless, exhausted kind of laugh you give when it's all just too insane to be real. I called my attorney, Heather. She's a shark. Smart, relentless, and allergic to bullshit tea, especially the kind Sierra specialized in. She's actually filing for alimony? I asked. Heather didn't even blink. We expected this. She'll say she's emotionally distressed. She'll cry in court. Pull out some fake receipts from therapy. Probably try to rewrite the timeline, too. But we've got everything, texts, photos, bank statements, surveillance. She's swinging blind now. Which meant we were winning. I leaned back, staring at the ceiling. Who burns the house down and then sues the people she torched? Sierra, Heather replied, deadpan. Fair enough. That night brought another curveball. I was just grabbing groceries, milk, eggs, coffee. The boring stuff that comes with pressing reset on your life. And then, out of the corner of my eye, I saw her. Sierra. Leaning against the hood of my car like it was her personal runway. Red lipstick. That too tight black dress. And the same plastic smile she always wore when she wanted to pretend like nothing had happened. Hey, stranger, she said sweetly. I stopped, keys in hand. I'm calling security. She rolled her eyes. Jack, don't be dramatic. Don't be dramatic? I shot back. You had me served. You set this whole thing on fire. And now what, you want to talk? Like adults, she said. I stepped closer. No. You mean manipulate. Like always. Her smile cracked for just a second, but only a second. You know, she said, walking around the car toward me, you're not exactly innocent in all of this. I raised an eyebrow. Excuse me. You were never home, she snapped. Always working. Always tired. You stopped, appreciating me. And there it was. The classic Sierra move, flip the blame, make her betrayal my fault. I laughed. A sharp, humorless bark. So let me get this straight. I worked late nights, paid the bills, and picked up the tab for your boutique habits. And that somehow earned me a front row seat to infidelity? You made me feel invisible, she shouted. Brandon made me feel seen. Brandon made you feel like something new to unwrap until he got bored, I said flatly. That landed. Her face twisted. She stepped in closer, too close. Eyes locked on mine. You think you've won, she whispered. But without me, you're just a lonely, bitter man hiding behind lawyers and lies. I stayed calm, pulled my phone from my pocket. No, I said. I'm a man who finally saw the truth. And I'm not hiding. I held up the phone, steady and cold, and took a photo of her. She flinched as the shutter clicked. "This is for court," I said, holding up my phone. "Evidence of harassment." Her voice dropped to a hiss. "You're playing with fire." I leaned in, close enough so only she could hear. "I'm fireproof now." She stood frozen for a second, her chest rising and falling, lips trembling like she wanted to scream but couldn't find the words. Then, just like that, she spun around, her heels pounding against the pavement as she stormed off into the night. I slid into my car, sat there for a long moment, no music, just the soft buzz of the streetlights above and the quiet settling in my chest. My pulse finally easing. Sierra had declared war, but the truth was, I'd already won the only battle that ever mattered. I had my freedom, and this time, I wasn't trading it for anything or anyone. The courtroom felt colder than I expected, not in temperature, but in spirit. It was one of those rooms where truth came to die, buried under polished shoes, crocodile tears, and performances so well-rehearsed they deserved an award. I sat beside Heather, my lawyer, sharp suit, calm expression, heart pounding like a drum under my chest. Across from us was Sierra. Of course, she looked flawless. That was part of her act. Hair perfectly styled. Soft, natural makeup. A modest blouse to sell the image of a heartbroken, misunderstood woman. Her eyes sparkled, but not with sadness. With adrenaline. With performance high. This was her favorite kind of stage, where everyone had to listen and no one could interrupt. She never looked directly at me, but I caught her stealing glances, trying to see if I'd crack under the pressure. I didn't. The judge called our case. Middle-aged woman, maybe in her 50s. Her eyes looked like they'd seen every trick in the book and stopped believing most of them years ago. "The matter of alimony, Sierra Phillips versus Jack Phillips," she announced. Sierra's lawyer started things off like he was auditioning for a poetry reading. He spoke about emotional neglect, financial instability, the trauma of a marriage that left Sierra too broken to build a career. Claimed she was now forced into instability with no access to funds. Heather leaned in and muttered under her breath, "She's laying it on thick. Wait until we bury her." Then Sierra took the stand. She spoke like she was narrating a tragic romance novel, her voice low, trembling just enough to sound believable. "I gave everything to the marriage," she said. "But Jack, he changed. He grew cold, distant. I felt invisible. I never meant to hurt him. I just needed to feel alive again." I nearly laughed, but I held it in. The judge asked, "Did you have an extramarital relationship with Mr. Brandon Butler?" Sierra hesitated. Her throat moved as she swallowed. "It wasn't physical at first," she whispered. "But yes, eventually." "And during this time," the judge continued, "did Mr. Phillips continue to support you financially?" "Yes," she said, "but you didn't know how to love me anymore." That's when Heather stood, cool, composed, and ready to strike. "Miss Phillips," she began sweetly, "did you purchase a ring and tell Mr. Butler's wife that he proposed to you?" Sierra blinked. "That was a misunderstanding." "Did you use Mr. Phillips's credit card to pay for motel rooms while meeting Mr. Butler?" Sierra hesitated. We shared finances." "And did you text your husband after one of those meetings saying, and I quote, 'Now that I got emotions from Brandon, you may touch me?'" Dead silence. Sierra stared down at her lap. Her hands were clasped together like she was hoping they'd hide her shame. Heather gave a quick nod. "No further questions." "We had everything. Text messages, surveillance footage, motel receipts, even GPS logs matching her car to every timestamp." The judge took it all in. Calm, measured, but cutting in her final ruling. "No alimony," she declared. Just like that, Sierra's case crumbled like a house of cards in a windstorm. She didn't say a word, just blinked. Like she was watching the magic she'd relied on her whole life suddenly short-circuit in front of her. As I turned to leave, she called out behind me, "Jack." I stopped. Not for her, but for closure. Sierra stood just outside the courtroom, dim and dull now. No more sparkle. Just bloodshot eyes and a hollow stare. "You ruined everything," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I looked at her one last time. Really looked. "No," I said. "You did." And I walked away. Outside, the air felt crisper than it had any right to. I slid into my car, loosened my tie, and stared at myself in the rearview mirror. I didn't look broken anymore. I looked alive. This wasn't just the end of a marriage. It was the death of an illusion. For the first time in years, I wasn't somebody's fallback, wallet, or emotional punching bag. I was free. That night, I got a message from Megan. "Coffee's still on the table," she wrote. And for the first time since it all came crashing down, I said yes. She picked the place. Quiet little cafe, tucked far enough outside of town that no one would recognize us. When I walked in, she was already there, hands wrapped tight around a mug of tea like it was the only thing keeping her steady. She smiled when she saw me. A real smile. Not the polished kind I'd gotten used to. Not the mask Sierra wore. Just honest. I wasn't sure you'd come, she said. Yeah, I admitted, taking a seat across from her. Wasn't sure either. But here I am. She nodded. Same. For a while, we didn't talk about them. We talked about coffee, work, kids, life. The small, ordinary things that felt like miracles after months of lies. But sooner or later, it circled back, like it always does. I saw her yesterday, Megan said quietly, staring into her cup. At the gym. She acted like nothing happened. Like we were just old friends who had a tiny disagreement. I shook my head. Sounds like her. Sierra could be standing in a burning house and still tell you it's just the lighting. Megan laughed, a soft, surprised sound. First time I'd seen her laugh. Even just a little. You know, she said, I used to envy her. That caught me off guard. Why? She was always the loudest one in the room. Confident. Sure of herself? I thought, maybe that's what men wanted. That energy. That chaos. I looked her straight in the eye. Confidence isn't chaos, I said. And real men? We don't want love used as a weapon. She studied me. Her gaze steadier now. So what do men want? I thought about that. About everything Sierra never was. Everything I needed but never got. Peace, I said. Not boredom. Not silence. Just peace. A soft place to land when the world gets too loud. She didn't answer right away. Just kept looking at me. We stayed there until the cafe closed. Then we stood outside by our cars, under the soft hum of parking lot lights. Not touching. Not flirting. Just breathing. Like the air didn't hurt anymore. You think they'll end up together? She asked. I laughed. No chance. Sierra can't sit still long enough to build anything real. And Brandon? He's too spineless to stop her. She smirked. So we dodged a bullet. I shook my head. No. We didn't dodge it, Megan. We got hit. Point blank. We just survived. She smiled again. Not the quick kind. The kind that grows slowly. Maybe that's our superpower, she said. A week later, I got a letter. From Sierra. It wasn't handwritten too personal for her. It was typed. Probably edited half a dozen times to make sure it sounded polished and measured. She said she was moving to California. Said she needed a fresh start. Hope one day we could be friends. I didn't respond. Because there's a difference between closure and reopening wounds. It's been 3 months now. I'm still putting the pieces back together. Still figuring out how to be alone without feeling lonely. I got a new couch. Built a new routine. Started a life that doesn't revolve around anyone else's moods or crises. I even reconnected with old friends, the ones Sierra slowly pushed out of my orbit over time. It's funny how you don't realize the walls are going up until you're already trapped behind them. As for Megan, we still meet up sometimes. No labels. No pressure. Just two people sharing coffee and quiet moments that don't come with strings attached. And if you're reading this, going through something like I did, here's what I'll tell you. You will survive. It won't be clean. It won't be easy. And it damn sure won't be painless. But the man who walks out the other side, he'll be stronger, smarter, sharper, and best of all, free. Because loving someone who lies, manipulates, and betrays you, that's not love. That's war. And when the war ends, you don't rebuild what burned. You build something better from the ashes.